somebody we both know. I actually married him twice. And he calls me up about a year after the first wedding I officiated. And he says, "Hey, man, I hate to tell you this, but she's got this problem with fidelity and it's just not going to work out." And he was broken. He was embarrassed to tell me about this. And I said, "Brother, it's going to be okay. I got a 5-year warranty. Just bring the next one in."
Welcome, my friends. Listen, I'm going to tell you this. Communication is probably the ultimate superpower for a leader. And I've got a superhero with us today, man. Chris Mock is a legend. I would call him that. Certainly a hero. He's one of the good guys. He never had those villain tendencies. I've known him for a number of years. Currently, and what he enjoys doing, based on our conversations, is being the COO, CMO at Big Frog Custom T-Shirts here in Frisco, Texas. Has done an amazing job there. But the reason I brought Chris on the show is to talk about communication when it comes to leaders as that skill, as that soft skill, or as we call power skills, superpower. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Man, listen, you are a person that understands communication. I've always known that about you. You're a good communicator. You were always funny, but you always had a great heart for people. And I think that's probably why you've been successful in business, is because you do care about people. You do want to see other people grow, which is the heart of a leader. And I appreciate that about you. Let's talk about this idea of communication. Why is it so important? And what do you think leaders tend to miss when it comes to communication?
I think one of the big things is leaders don't stop to find out what motivates their team. And this comes from a mistake I made early on, because I came from retail leadership with a wireless carrier. And when you lead salespeople, you have big personalities who are money motivated, And so I went in to open this Big Frog franchise where I hire exclusively artists, and thinking I could motivate them the same way that I could motivate salespeople. And if you're not looking back every 5 years and thinking, "Man, I was a real idiot," you're just not growing as a person, right?
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Finding out that the things that make a happy employee in an artistic field are, creating a positive environment and encouraging, and it's not the "no news is good news, go make your money" kind of situation. It's learning to never leave the shop without asking, "What do you need from me?" before I go.
We've all seen leaders that their humor, it doesn't hit. It seems fake and surface because we know that they don't care. They're just trying to make a joke for the sake of making a joke versus making a joke to connect on an emotional level with us. So on that note, how do you think that leaders can bake humor into the culture if they want to, without making it forced?
So, improv is a huge part of that, which, it's funny because on its face it's not designed to be funny, but it just kind of is. Yes and has become very popular over the last couple of years. And one of the ways that I've used that is if somebody comes into the store and says, "Hey, I'd like to get some shirts printed," I might say, "Oh, man, for the record, I think that's a great idea," and just lay it out there where, and they'll respond playfully like, "Oh, I bet you do." But what it does is it disarms the sales conversation because they know that they're in a sales situation.
Sure.
But it just lays out the roles of who we are. It's like, okay, now we can get down to business. I go to a few Chamber of Commerce meetings every week, and you're in a room full of 60 to 100 other business owners. Each of them gets 30 seconds to speak. If you can give your fellow business owners a reason to laugh, you're going to stand out.
Absolutely. Wow, that's good. That's good. So you got that 30 seconds. That's just enough for you to make like one good couple good lines, right?
Absolutely.
Well, you're good at thinking on your feet. Do you have lines just kind of in your head that you store in by memory, or are you really just that good at coming up with them on the fly?
50-50, you got to have a few in the can, like ready to go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you go rogue and it hits hard, it's like, all right, yeah, I'll keep that.
Imagine if I'm a leader and I'm trying to inject some humor into my meetings or into my workflows or something, and it's just not going over well. I'm getting crickets.
Yeah.
how do I respond to that as a leader? What do I do then?
Well, first you got to frame it beforehand, right? And I talked about getting the reps in, getting the training and getting the practice. Realize that those bombs are going to happen fewer and fewer. But really, if you're getting reps in and you get a bad rep, like at the gym, is that going to ruin your whole workout? It's like, no, let me get another rep in, right? I'm going to keep training. And so, say I did a curl at the gym with bad form. That's how I think about it. If I
Oh, I see.
said
Okay.
something that bombed,
You can't take
and
it personally.
you can. It's not a big deal. It's one rep in a whole conversation, and realize beforehand, how do I want my humor to go?
Mhm.
Set guidelines up for yourself. Like, first off, I'm, not going to say anything qualitative about anybody.
That's good. That's good.
I'm not going to hurt anybody in my
Sure.
humor.
Sure.
And as long as you have those ethics in place, you may bomb, but you're not going to hurt anybody.
No harm, no foul. You can move on.
Yeah, and like I
Wow,
tell my
that's good.
I proposed to my wife 3 days before April Fool's Day, and so naturally, I had to send my mom a picture of an ultrasound. And
See
long
where this is going.
long story short, she calls up my fiance saying it's not too late to change your mind, and but ultimately, here we are, a few years later, proving my point that if we can all laugh later, it's funny now.
Mhm.
So if you're on the fence about something and really it's not going to hurt anybody, just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll get, at the very least, you'll get a rep in and you'll learn from it if it's a bad rep. And by the way, when we're saying rep, we're talking about repetitions. We keep saying that,
Yeah.
but people may be going, what are y'all talking about reps? Yeah, reps in the gym. You're talking about repetitions. Tell me about how you know when your humor is working versus when it isn't.
Oh, you can hear it. You know.
The sound of
uh,
crickets versus the sound of laughing. Sure. What you're saying really resonates that you really do need to pay attention, know, read the room, understand when, and also to have not just trying to be funny for funny's sake, because I think if the goal is that,
yeah.
that's unless you're a comedian or a stand-up comic or something or an actor even, but using it to build the stickiness of the point that you're making,
Yeah.
there's something to that. And if you could thread that needle as a leader where you can make your really serious points or learning opportunities or concepts that you're training your people on, and you could inject a little bit of humor into it, that's going to make that concept stick with them more because they'll remember that joke you told. What was that about? Oh yeah, it was about this. What was the point of that? Oh, it was this. And being able to make that connection, maybe that's part of success as a leader. I've never really thought of that. I love it. What do you see? What trends are you seeing in terms of communicating to frontline workers these days? Because you've got a lot of channels that are being used. Everything, from text message to phone to email to social media to your Zooms and your Teams and all that. Still, though, there's room for that in person training. Hopefully,
Mhm.
otherwise I may be out of a job. What do you see kind of as the trend in maybe that learning and communication space these days?
Man, I'm gonna geek out on this. So,
Go for it.
dendrites are use it or lose it, right? If you're
Yeah.
gonna have those connections in your brain, if you are not exercising those channels, they shrivel up.
Mm.
So I mean, I communicate with my team in person as much as possible, just to getting those reps in.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you know, because they're not going to be communicating like that at home. They're not
Mm.
going to be communicating with that largely in their peer group anymore. And now with Chat GPT, you
Mhm.
know, we're we're at we're at a situation where people are outsourcing their brains. They're not having
Mm.
those muscles at all.
Wow.
So I think in training, again, going back to it being practice based instead of knowledge based, yeah, you probably know more than me. Can you do
Mm.
it?
Wow.
And I think of that. I don't know if you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory,
Yeah, yeah,
but
I've watched it before.
there was a point where Leonard's car breaks down, and he asks a room full of scientists or a car full of scientists, says, "Does anybody know anything about internal combustion engines?" And everybody starts spouting off all these facts about, and then he's like, "Okay, can anybody fix one?"
Mm.
You know,
That's the difference.
and yeah, so you've got, a world full of people who already know about yes and. but they haven't practiced it.
Mm, they don't have the reps. So you give
Nope.
them the reps. That's encouraging, Chris, because as a person who specializes in in-person training, I do virtual, but it's still me as a person talking to humans. Do you feel like we're going in, and I've been asking this of my guests for the last few episodes, in the dawn of AI, which we're kind of in the real early stages of where it's going to be, it's still baby technology. Is there always, or I hate saying always, this is superlative. Do you feel like for the near future and maybe the midterm future that there's still going to be a place for us human beings to train other human beings, whether it's in person or virtually? Are we still going to have a job to do?
Oh, 100%. I think what AI is going to do is cut out the middle. I think that the people who are going to really thrive in this new technological advancement are going to be the people who can either use AI to accelerate, right? Like you could have 10 times the company with the same number of staff. And I hope they think of that way instead of thinking we can operate with 1/10 of the staff. And or the people who can foster and maintain human connections. Because as long as there are humans, there is going to be a need for connection. So I think that in-person training is going to be vital. When people go into that room and they feel that connection, it's going to instill a craving for more. And so when they become more adept at initiating and maintaining those connections, yeah, there's no end in sight for you.
Good. That makes me feel hopeful. And Mark Cuban was talking about that the other day. He said we're in this pendulum where it's swinging towards everybody wanting to use AI and Gen AI and LLMs and all that. But we're at some point we're going to get real. It's going to become old hat, and we're going to need that human connection again. And then I hope that it goes this way where people like you and me that do training, we sort of become niche human training, and we get the little seal, kind of like organic food or something like that, where it's a premium thing to have content, and you'll start to see websites and art that says created by humans, right? 100% human. That's fine with me, and I love the idea of the pendulum swinging back that direction. Hope I'm still around when it does, and I think we're in a weird place. It's interesting. It's so intriguing. But I'm with you, man. I think communication is so important right now, and I love the yes and concept. We talked about that on a Tim Talk recently, but we got to practice it. And it seems like that's the takeaway of our conversation today is it's not just knowing it's being able to put it into practice. And we need people like you, Chris, to give us those reps, to show us how to do that. That being said, can we plug your training right now? Are you available for freelance training for companies to bring you in and teach them how to communicate, teach your people how to do the improv and communication training?
Absolutely. Yeah. You
Okay.
can find me on LinkedIn, Christopher Mock, or on Instagram at CEMockCX for customer experience.
Excellent. And we'll have all that information in the description for the episode. Definitely, if you're watching today and you're like, I'd never thought of this idea of teaching my frontline folks how to communicate through improv, talk to this guy. He can hook you up. He'll get you some training, and I'll vouch for him. I haven't been to his trainings, but I've known him long enough to know he's good people. He's got the skill. If nothing else, you will have an amazing time, and even that in and of itself can be a great thing for a lot of teams. So thank you, Chris, for being here today, man. I'm glad to have you as a friend. Glad to have you as an associate of mine, someone that I've always had a great deal of respect for. So thanks for being here. Thank you for watching today. Check out Chris's stuff. Check out my website, thebrandonwalker.com. Plenty of trainings on there. I don't do improv training. I'm not that good at it. I'm an actor, but I'm terrible at improv. So I need a script.
We can fix that.
Thank you. Good. I'm glad somebody can. All right. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thanks, Brandon.